Welcome to Lydia Fenet's Claim Your Confidence, a podcast that will introduce you to the most powerful women in the world as they talk about their own confidence journey. No matter what obstacles you face, Claim Your Confidence will inspire you, motivate you, and give you a roadmap to live the life you want. So, are you ready to claim your confidence?
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Claim Your Confidence. I'm Lydia Fenet. I am podcasting out of my amazing studio in Rockefeller Center, and seated across from me, I have such an incredible woman. Katie Kime is the kind of woman whose wallpaper you have definitely seen. I'm obsessed with it. I walked into someone's home once and realized when I thought I was looking at a traditional toile, I was actually looking at images of New York City, which is, as you all know, my greatest love. If you've ever seen a bright, fabulous print with something that looks a little bit out there, it's probably something Katie's created. Katie, welcome to Claim Your Confidence.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, Katie, you're a fellow Southerner.
I am. North Carolina.
North Carolina. Where in North Carolina?
I was raised west of Asheville in the tiny little mountain town, born in Greensboro, but most of my life was in the mountains.
And what was it like growing up there?
You know, I was just talking to my husband about this recently. It was weirdly idyllic. I mean, rural Appalachia is not what most people think of as idyllic, but the community, the outdoors, and sports were made for a feeling growing up that I really would not trade.
And I know that you have a lot of kids in your own home, which we'll get to later, but how many siblings did you have?
I have biological siblings, a brother and a sister, and then we had two boys. My mom was a middle school principal, and we had two boys that lived with us for a while. So I went from being the youngest of five at times to then the only child with my mom at times once they left the house. So I think it's why I'm a little peculiar.
Wait, so were they all boys who lived there as well?
No, three boys and then a sister. So two girls, three boys.
That's amazing. It must have been an interesting childhood.
It was very interesting.
Nonstop, I would think.
Nonstop.
Throughout it all, were you always creative?
I really was. Back to my mom being a principal, I would take the bus to her school, and really my earliest memories, some of my earliest memories were going to the art room, and the art teacher there would teach me how to make pottery or teach me how to do various things while I waited for my mom to be done. And I do have just really, really early memories of always trying to make something.
And did you just love it from the minute you started?
Mm-hmm. Could never get enough.
It's so funny. I have to say I have not a creative bone in my body when it comes to art. And every time I've ever seen anyone who is good at it, it's like there's something about the way they pick up a brush and can create a flower. And I'll just stare at that brush and be like, I have absolutely no idea how you did that. Yeah. So was it always painting? Was it drawing? What was the medium?
It was always a mixed medium. And I see a thread even in the business in that regard. But drawing, painting, pottery. In college, I studied more of this, got into screen printing, photography. So I really instill today any medium I can learn. I mean, my dream is to have just a guy who helps me figure out welding and sculptures. I mean, I just want to keep going.
Going.
Yeah, but I have a job for now.
But one day a welder. One day aiming for welding. So when you were in high school, you played basketball. Is that correct?
I did. I actually played basketball and volleyball and ran track, but basketball was my love.
I love it. And so how long did you play? You're not as tall as I am. I'm part giant. I'm 5'11". But
no, I'm only 5'8".
So what did you play?
I was a point guard. And I started really young, and I just fell in love with it by 9. And by 9, the high school coach, again, in this small, tiny town, had kind of taken me under his wing. He let me manage the basketball team and then start practicing with the varsity when I was in 6th grade.
Wow.
And so it really became... From family chaos, it did become a saving grace a little bit. And performance and outlets like creativity and sports just were and have always been just my favorite.
What you're looking to
outlets.
do?
Yeah.
And so you played basketball in college. You said that right before we got on the interview.
So I was recruited to play. I was recruited to play quite a few schools, the best being a D1 school. Mm-hmm. And so I, very much by junior year was like, do I go do the basketball thing or do I kind of hang up my jersey? And I decided on the latter. And then I went to Duke, where I got to pull for the basketball team, but not play basketball. So.
That's so amazing. So what was that journey like for you? So, I mean, team sports are amazing. And honestly, it gets addictive when you start winning, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're on a winning team and you're doing really well. And then to get selected, you're the best of the best and come to this college. What was that like as a confident child? Did it feel like it was part of what was building you up, or was it something that you were struggling with at that time?
I feel like I had a good amount of confidence. I would actually say early on, I was just more self-assured. Always had a pretty strong will. I think sports truly gave me confidence.
Yeah.
It was like the first thing that, I started playing varsity as a freshman. So even confidence around people almost 4 years older than me, in that dynamic, taking a court, leading, very much was like the first main confidence builder of my life.
And a lot of lessons taught through winning and losing, I suspect.
Absolutely. Winning, losing, practice, teamwork. We were taught on time is 15 minutes early, all those kinds of things.
Yeah. On time is 15 minutes early.
Yeah,
oh, Mom, are you listening to this? Oh my gosh, my mom is British and she will be like clapping as she hears you say that. On time. Are you still like that today?
I feel like I'm like sliding. I used to be very much that way. And now I get to my meetings like 1 minute before or 1 minute after, and I'm like, Katie, you're slipping.
I feel exactly the same way. I was thinking this last night. I used to be hyper early for things, like
Same.
criminally
like
early.
Weirdly early.
Yes, like 20 minutes before, and then I'd be waiting, and if someone was 1 minute late, I would be like, it's so rude. How can they be so rude? I think COVID actually played a part in that.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
I am really like something's changed where I'm a little bit more like that. I never have been.
Me too.
So yeah.
Very interesting. We'll have to dive into that in another podcast called Why Are We Later Now? But it also gives me, it's better for my friends because I now give them grace, whereas I used to be really hard-nosed about it.
So true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes me feel better. This podcast is going so well already. So after you get to college and you're not playing sports, are you still doing a lot of art while you're in college?
Yes. I double majored, and one of my majors was visual arts. And I really did that one as, I did not see ever going into this really as a career. I just didn't think it was viable. I thought that I would have to do something a little more practical. So my visual arts major was just kind of like a side, like this will give me that outlet. But then it just kind of never went away. And by senior year, I was like, I think maybe I'm going to try to do this.
Because I read somewhere you were doing a lot of trunk shows, right?
Yeah. By senior year, leading up to it, I was doing a lot of kind of one-off projects. And by senior year, this very instrumental person in my career, which was Coach K's daughter, Debbie Krzyzewski-Severino. I'd been making a lot of things for her. And she said, as your, kind of senior gift, want to give you, just host a trunk show for you. I'm going to bring my friends, you bring your friends. And that was really where it kind of clicked.
Is what happened.
So you're, in Durham, North Carolina. And so it's not like you have access to the garment district.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just making whatever you can make. So I went to Goodwill, recovered a dresser, changed the hardware. I had a large printer in my apartment because I had taken enough kind of around printing. So I was making stationery sets. So anything I could make within an apartment in Durham, I created as a collection. So different products, but all that seemed to fit together. And so when I did the trunk show, because everyone I had all these, various materials, various products, but it clicked for everyone that they all went together. And it was so well received that after I just thought I'm going to go try to learn how to really make things and mass produce them and scale and do lifestyle brand. And
this was in college you decided to do it. I feel like most people, it takes them 20 years and all of a sudden they're like, now I need to scale this business.
Well, I always say there's a fine line between courage and stupidity, and I'm not sure. You never know which one you're coming down on. Because I had so many people say you should go to New York and you should go. You really have to go learn this industry, and then you can start a business. And I don't think that's bad advice. It just wasn't the advice I took.
So what did you do? What was the next step?
So I moved to Atlanta for a couple years, where there was more of a market for learning these things. I apprenticed under an upholsterer. I learned how to sew. I worked part-time for an e-commerce photographer. So this is how you would shoot a product and put it on a website. I worked for an interior design firm, learning a bit about the interiors world. And I was all this time doing, custom wedding stationery, custom bridesmaids dresses. The moneymaker was kind of on the side hustle. But it was really like learning, how do you learn all these industries in the crash course? And then I moved on to, the business plan part. How do you do that? Yeah. And eventually put them all together and started doing true trunk shows where I was like making some, actual money and making some cooler stuff. Moved to Austin and then launched Katie Kime in 2013. And here we are.
We're still here. So take me back to when you're learning how to do all this. Was it always that it was going to be a collection? It was never going to be one product? Because I have heard from people that the idea of going out with a broad swath of things is not always the best thing.
Absolutely.
So what would you say about that?
I would say I was so passionate truly about bringing fashion and home together. Like I knew I did not want to do just one of those. And if you said you can make this much money just making this, it just was not what I wanted. And I felt like no one had done it really well. You know, there was all these people that I love, like Tory Burch, Kate Spade, you had Jonathan Adler. I mean, really only Ralph, because he's Ralph, has brought the whole world of something together. Yeah. So I would say that probably not doing it that way is best. I mean, maybe try one thing. For me, it just was, I knew it was the path for me.
So what did it start out as?
Started out as a lot of furniture and going in, buying and recovering, or buying and spray painting, and then having an upholsterer kind of take traditional French frames, but like a bright white or a bright pink to make them kind of stand out and be very different. So it started out as a lot of furniture and a lot of custom dresses.
And who was buying it at that point?
I mean, probably my friends who felt bad for me.
You're like, my friends whose houses are literally covered in Katie Kime, my mom.
No, my aesthetic, I do feel like was always well received. It just wasn't scalable or, commercial enough. So it would be hosting a trunk show in Atlanta, Austin. I came to New York. I had one on the Upper East Side. Of course, you don't think about how small things are here. So we're taking hinges, like doors off the hinges.
Oh, totally. Like cutting things
to move
in half
in
to
furniture.
Get them in. Couch doctor. Anyone in New York know that?
Yeah, exactly. So whoever I could get in front of mostly was receiving it pretty well and buying things, but it just wasn't scalable. Yeah. And so after the trunk show world, and it was like, I'm going to move online. I was still doing a lot of furniture, some custom dresses, had moved into, wall art, some stationery, but the scalability started to come into it. So that's when the wallpaper and this print thing really started to say, this is more scalable than giant chairs.
Were you blogging at this time? How were you getting the word out?
Yeah, I was blogging. I was creating my own emails, and I feel like I was kind of early to like this email world.
Yeah.
I didn't have a MailChimp or anything like that, but I was just making really beautiful emails and inserting the graphic into the body and then sending it out. I was pretty early to Instagram.
Yeah. Which I feel like people say now, it was really the gate. I mean, it was like a game changer for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of that. And then, I mean, I have always been a hustler. And I hustled, and I'm still hustling.
Yes,
like, let's be clear.
Of course.
It's not going away anytime soon as far as, it's never like you arrive.
Yeah.
So.
Because what does it take to maintain that business, especially in a market that is increasingly crowded, I'm sure?
So I think something that's not spoken about enough, or not maybe in like the smaller type of company, is the fundraising and how do you fund it? And if you can either, slowly make a decent living and sell this much online and have maybe one employee or two. But I think if you want to scale, which I've always wanted to, there has to be some capital. And both for females and just this industry, there's not a lot of it. So that's been a big piece of just even that journey. Like early on, I need $30,000 to make these samples to launch online. Where do I get that?
Where did you get that?
I got it from 3 friends who were 2 brothers and a sister, like dear friends of mine. And they kind of like shared like a fund together. And so I went to them and said, for a promissory note, can I, would y'all be interested? Because they did some investing together and they did it.
They did it. Yeah. And so then did you take on more capital?
Eventually I did. I closed it around in the last 6 to 8 months that has really allowed us to set the foundation for the next couple of years and bring on the team that I have right now is, in my opinion, why things are really starting to transform. So it allowed us to bring them on.
How did you get the idea for the wallpaper, which I think most people really, it's not that you're known for it, but I feel like it's so easily identifiable, which is the toile pattern.
Right.
Tell us about how that came, and tell everyone who is listening who may not know, but will now realize what they're looking at the next time they see it.
Yeah, so toile, Toile, is... So interestingly, people think it started in France. It actually started in Ireland.
Oh, now I know.
But when it came to France, like right outside of Versailles, we're going to go with that, is where there were like hundreds of these different toile patterns that started to emerge. And so I have no idea like where I fell in love with this French toile. I know I was 18 or 19. It was early. It's just that traditional black and white. It's like little girls playing in
It's like a bucolic scene.
Yeah, like
cow.
playing in a field.
Yeah.
And I have always loved contrast. And for whatever reason, I just always loved it. And so then I saw someone in Domino magazine. I saw like a modern take in college, and it was so cool to me. It was like I think it might have been Sheila Bridges' Harlem Toile, and it was like such a statement she was making. It was incredible, and I'd never seen someone do a modern take. So, I mean, fast forward 8 to 10 years, we had become known for prints. Our banana leaves, our oyster print really had kind of put us on the map. The mums.
Which I have in my bathroom, by the way. This was so fortuitous. I told her when she came in. Yeah.
That was truly like, those were the top 3. And so then was like, okay, what's the next big print? I was like, well, what if we tried to do some modern toiles? Austin, Nashville, these cities that like are kind of obsessed with themselves. So we spent like a year and a half.
Cities that are obsessed with themselves.
They are.
And can you do the list one more time? Austin, Nashville, and New York City.
New York City, exactly. I mean, if you look on our website, it's strategic.
Yes,
I mean,
of
it's
course.
not,
People love being from there. That's
exactly.
so true.
So we spent like a year and a half in development because the artwork is so nuanced in toile. It's not like you just draw, the MoMA.
Right.
It's a certain treatment, certain hand. And so finding the artist and then finding enough artists that could all make them look the same. Like we're still dealing with that. So we launched it with, I think, Nashville, Austin, and New Orleans. And then came the Marfa Toile, which everyone just kind of lost their minds over. And then it's kept going, and we're still making it. And so to answer the wallpaper question, it was really, the furniture was there early. All these other products, a lot of times I would have people say, I don't really know what you do. Do you make this or do you make that? Like I thought you made, and the one thread that ran through all of them was print. And so, and I was manufacturing some wallpaper elsewhere. That print would always be on these same things. And so we said, let's let furniture go and really push into this wallpaper thing and this print thing.
Yeah.
And so then we started bringing the wallpaper printing in-house. So now we do all of that in-house. We have giant machines that are running and cutters. And I don't know, it did become kind of this canvas that you could put print on in an amazing way. And I think for people, it's like in your bathroom, you can have like this boldness in a smaller room. It doesn't have to take over, you're not going to put it all over the living room.
Yeah.
And so I think it's almost a way for people also to kind of play with confidence or boldness. That's really been like such a gift.
Yeah. And it's so fun because it really changes up the dynamic. I would say that most of my apartment is pretty calm.
Right.
And then the artwork is what makes it pop. But the bathroom is the same feeling. It's like if you open the door to that, the immediate reaction is, oh.
Exactly. It's not a white
Nobody's
wall.
like, oh, no, that's not. It is literally a statement, which is really fun to be able to make.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about when you've started this business. I love the failure stories. So I'm sure there must be some spectacular ones. And this is really to embolden the entrepreneur who is having a bad day and is listening to this right now, who isn't able to scale their business yet, but wants to do it. Give us something really good and juicy.
Well, first I can say what I just kind of alluded to, which is I'm not selling any of the products currently that I started out selling. So,
I like to think about it as an evolution, by the way.
That's a euphemism a bit. So, I mean, I pivoted and pivoted and pivoted. Oh, that doesn't work. Or it works for 3 people, not 300,000 people, So a lot of that piece. Hiring has been a real journey.
Pre-COVID or after
COVID?
The whole thing.
The
whole
just,
time.
I would say, I think I made some mistakes on how early I thought we needed certain positions. We weren't ready, but I tried to bring those people on anyway. So it was like a tiny company with a big person because I thought that big person would make this tiny company bigger. Wildly expensive mistake. And I did that more than once.
Yeah.
So, I mean, truly. And I mean, it was very well intended. I thought that's, I'm not an operator. I kept thinking like I'm this creative that needs an operator that's done this in the industry. And so I tried bringing one from New York. And again, everyone with good intentions, just my miss on the timing and the stage of the business. So that one, let's see, product. I've made some financial. Another with money. I mean, I think, you'd think that we'd all learn, even if you're not an entrepreneur, that there's always less money than you think there is.
Yes.
Like, how is it that we all, and I'm sure people listening are like, well, that's not all of us, but I think it's all of us. So, yeah, I mean, even just budget, realizing just what the budgeting piece needs, the rigor that's needed, and making that a priority instead of just all the fun, pretty stuff
Yeah.
I had to learn that some of the hard way. I mean, I was always aware of it, but just to the extent.
Yes.
Now I have this amazing head of finance, VP of finance. It's just makes me wonder how I ever stayed in business before she came.
Yeah.
So
She probably isn't that fun, though. That's probably that's the problem with the VP of finance and ability. I'm sure that every person who is good with finance is like, oh, the other side of that is the creative. But the VP of finance is never the person that is going to be the most fun, but definitely a critical part of business for sure.
Yeah, she'd surprise you. But her mind and mine are very different.
Yes, which I think you need.
Yeah,
I've always said you should hire for the things that, in a way, that slow you down.
Absolutely.
I started a business in May, and one of the things that I learned I ran 9 teams at Christie's over 24 years, and I really learned towards the end of my time there that the most important thing was to hire people who were good at the things that really took energy from what I could do, because I can come up with a million ideas. I can make those ideas forward. I can make them move forward. But if you want me to put that on an Excel spreadsheet, it will take me 20 days because I will resist it so badly.
Absolutely. And the thing that I've learned with this new amazing team that, again, I had a lot of failure to find is that there are people out there that they love doing that.
That's their passion.
And it's not just Excel spreadsheets. It's like the weirdest things about a company.
Yes.
There are people and they've helped me relinquish some of the control by being like, no, we love this part that you hate, that you think you have to do, because that's been so exciting, Yeah,
absolutely. It's interesting because when I was joking about the evolution, I do think it is interesting that a lot of people see failure as failure, stop, I'm done, I can't do it anymore. And I think the most successful people, certainly the most successful people who've been on this podcast, are the people who look at it the way that you just described it and the way that I feel that it is. At the end of the day, you're constantly shedding things that don't serve you anymore. In business, in entrepreneurship, it's probably the most important thing. You're not holding on to things that don't work.
Right.
Because ultimately that will slow you down, and that will take a lot of energy as you try to figure out how to put a square peg in a round hole, which, by the way, will never fit.
Right.
And that's the key to the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't fear failure a lot. I just think it's a part of it. You know, you just know that it is. And so it's never scared me a lot.
Yeah. So you were telling me before as well that you have an interesting family dynamic.
Yes.
You have 3 children that are not biologically yours, and then you have a young child who is. So tell me a little bit about running a company when you have so many different personalities in your house.
Yeah, so I have 18, 16, almost 13. Actually, she's 16 tomorrow. Almost 13, and then 16 months. And so our family and our household is never a dull moment. And then, yes, a growing company, a growing team. We're almost up to 30. And I do feel increasingly that there is demand on both sides that's at times overwhelming. And I've spoken with a lot of women about this. This is not a unique thought, but there are a lot of days where it doesn't feel like you're great at either.
Yes,
of
course. Yeah.
But it's like, if it's good enough for now, sometimes that's all we can do.
One pigtail. We don't need both of them today.
It's funny. It's interesting. I do think I have a little bit of different personalities at work versus home.
Interesting.
They're not always the same.
In what way?
It's funny. I was talking to some people on my team, and they were talking about my directness. And they were like, we kind of sometimes want you to be more direct. Like, we always know that you know exactly what you want to say, but it sounds like you're a little,
like a good Southern girl.
Exactly. And I laughed, and I was like, well, no one in my family thinks that's an issue.
Yeah.
And so I see myself kind of, playing to different strengths and weaknesses based on the environment.
I did a test when I was at Christie's called Insights, which I always thought was really interesting, which they basically describe in 4 different colors. And each color is, if you were to put the CEO, this is broad brushstrokes, but the CEO of a blue color would be Bill Gates, very analytical, very thoughtful, very skilled. Green would be kind of Obama, very community-driven, a lot of different ideas all coming together towards a common goal. A yellow would be Richard Branson. So it would be like, I need to put this IKEA thing together, grab some wine, and let's also grab some beer, and we're going to have a great time. And maybe we'll get this together, maybe we won't. And then the red was the equivalent of like a Donald Trump, like a very hard, headstrong, sort of leads with ownership and doesn't really care about people's opinions and all of those things. One of the most interesting things about that I always found was that you did have different insights based on your home life versus your work life. So you might be more yellow at home and a little bit less red, whereas you might walk into the work and be more red and like a little bit less green or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm really just starting to realize that that's the case for me. It's like kind of a new realization, and I think both could could benefit from a little bit of just more balance.
Yeah.
Coming to the middle.
Yeah.
So
managing is not an easy thing.
No.
Especially in this day and age where there's so many different things that are going on in the world which impact the way that people come into work. And I know when I started working 2 decades ago, you did not bring your full self to work, so no one really had any idea what was going on.
Right.
So there's so many things about what's going on in the world, but I do find that I hear that from a lot of people, that hiring or creating teams or even managing teams can be a huge challenge of a business.
it is, for sure.
So out of everything that you've created, what do you love the most?
Truly, I probably love the team I've created. And I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for.
No, it's not at all what I thought you were going to say.
I move on so quickly from things that I create that are visual. I'm so done with them and ready for the next. So it's not like I'm like obsessed with anything I've ever made.
It's interesting.
So, but I am very proud of what it's taken to get to the place where, with this team, and some will come and some will go. It doesn't mean it's set forever. We can create, like, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So interestingly, like, that's one of the things I'm most proud of.
Do you have your entire home decorated in Katie Kime, or do you use other things?
So here's a shocker.
The cobbler's shoe, like that whole thing. No, Kitty doesn't have shoes. His dad's a cobbler.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's that my husband is the only, I hope you listen to this, is the only man in the world whose wife is in my profession, and he does not think that I should then have just carte blanche, kind of
that is
freedom.
Hilarious.
So we have a lot of conflict over decor in our house.
Oh,
and so we have a guest house. And he's laughing because he's like, yeah, you have a whole like separate house. We have a guest house that's above our garage, and it's 2 bedrooms and a living room and ample space. And that is where I have taken over, and it is mine, and I don't care what anyone says.
It's like your girl den.
Exactly. So that
den.
one really is like, it's New York Toile everywhere. It's bright colors. I literally paint on the walls. So that's the full expression that I have. But our main house is it's a lot wider than you'd expect.
What happens in the 2-bedroom guest house? Is this the party house?
It's funny. We do a lot of meetings there because it's got a big open space. So my team, our main office is connected to our warehouse. So we have 9,000 square feet.
Wow.
But half of it's industrial. It's still great, but I mean, it's not always the most inspiring environment, just because we're also overflowing with warehouse, pajamas and all those. So we take a lot of meetings, and we call it the cottage. So my team will come, which is great because we get to just feel more inspired there. Keep a lot of guests. When they're there, they stay in one of the guest rooms. And then the other one is like a painting studio that just has my canvases and paint everywhere. And so, I mean, I really do have the most amazing space to just be me, but everywhere else is pretty neutral.
Do you manufacture everything in the U.S.?
We manufacture a lot. Most things that are paper-based, even our ice buckets, lucite trays, wallpaper, but then all of our pajamas are done overseas.
So when you have this cottage in the back, is it hard to find time where you're not creating? I mean, you must want to run out there all the time. How do you find that line?
I feel like the business operations and kind of the team leadership piece of the business has grown so much for me that, if anything, I feel like I'm missing time to be creative. So it's almost like I'm so happy it's always there. Because, I mean, I can wake up in the middle of the night and be like, I'm just going to go over. And,
do you do that?
Yeah.
In your pajamas? In your Katie Kime pajamas, you jog across to the cottage. Yeah. You're like, this is amazing. I'm wearing my pajamas in my cottage.
Yes,
I
exactly.
love it. So what else do you do in Austin? You've moved there. What are your other hobbies? Because obviously you have such an incredible career, but what else do you do when you have a business like this, which I'm sure consumes so much of your time?
It does. I do love that the business aspect of content, and even though that's part of the business, it's also a hobby. So I love photography. I love making stories. I love filming things, even if it's not for work. I'm doing a journalism program right now to try to learn more about that storytelling aspect. So some of what I do in Austin is go to school at night online.
Oh, wow. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm doing a master's program.
And when did that start?
It started about 2.5 years ago. And I'm some semesters I'm doing 2 courses. Yeah. This semester I took off because of Q4. And so then next January I'll probably start 2 again. I try to time it with like how demanding work is. But I love Austin. It's such an outdoorsy, amazing town. We're on the lake a lot. We love the water there. All my friends are like fitness fanatics, so I try to
keep up.
I try to keep up, which I really enjoy when I'm doing it. We're big foodies. We eat out a ton and there's always a new restaurant in Austin, so we try to make it. And then travel is a huge a huge passion of our whole families. It's like with our older three, the five of us had this whole era of like traveling the world, and we were like in this sweet spot.
And now you have a toddler.
And now we have a baby. We're like,
Oh, it's the hardest time
It's really
too
tough.
on an airplane because they want to walk up and down the aisle for 100 hours.
Yeah. And so we have built-in babysitters, which is nice, but it's still like, we don't want to torture her with a 12-hour flight to wherever. So we're figuring out that piece, but we stay pretty busy.
And I'm sure those travels have greatly impacted what you've created over the years too.
Right. I mean, the biggest impact. I mean, travel is, and it's such a piece that we really try to incorporate even into the storytelling and content, but there's nothing that's ever, other than sports, had a bigger impact on me.
I feel like there's so many parts of your life where you show this natural curiosity, even this journalism degree that you're pursuing at night online, in addition to your cottage and everything else that's going on with your 4 children. It just seems like there's so many things that you are curious about. What do you see happening next for you? Is it the brand is going to continue evolving? I mean, what happens next for Katie Kime?
Well, I appreciate you saying that because I do feel wildly curious, and I feel like that's a compliment, so thank you. We are here. I mean, 3 of my team members are here in New York with me because we are scouting retail concepts, product expansion. So we're planning brick and mortar pop-ups in 24. We have our ideal markets. We'll see if they happen. But one in the summer, one in the holiday season. And then by 25, we would be doing true brick and mortar. So
And where will that be, do you think? Are you willing to say it?
I mean, certainly. I mean, Austin, what's happening with Austin, even though we are Austin-based, some of the new retail centers and things happening there. We'd love to have like a flagship in Austin.
Amazing.
But we'd love to do something in East Hampton in the summer. Houston and Dallas are massive markets, not just because we're Texans, they're just massive places. And from there, I think we'd look at like a Charleston or a Nashville. But someone smarter than me will figure this out as it relates to retail strategy. But that's piquing my curiosity, and even being here and the idea that I could get to be as creative as a store display blows my mind, because what's out there is just crazy and amazing and endless and like
changing.
It's changing. And we walked 10 miles yesterday, the 4 of us, just going into this, looking at this experience and how do they do this, and we were like, oh, there's so much more digital now. But it's not off-putting, and you can customize these on site, and so that opens up a world for me that is like a dream.
That's amazing.
So.
How do you continue to grow your social media presence at this point? You're in a place, I feel like Instagram is very difficult. Are you on TikTok? Like, what are you doing to get your brand out there and to continue to sell?
Yeah, it's like the never-ending question, right? Or the ever-changing question, because the landscape's always changing. So we have found various things, a few different things have worked. Organic and truly like relationships like this, where you met someone and you're both fans of each other and you both have a following and you promote each other.
Yeah.
Has a lot of value.
Yes.
Because I think that when you're not only, nothing against the influencer world, but when someone's not just being paid, I think your following cares who you care about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're not, always getting a perk. And I think it's, same for us and everyone else. So we really are pretty bought into like true relationships that we care about and cultivating those and cross promoting one another.
Yeah.
We're going to relaunch our blog in January, but it will be not your long form kind of normal blog. It will be more almost a hub for where all this content lives, because if you think about Instagram, TikTok, all these, like that's their platform and that's where all the content is. You can't, you're real. You can't even get off of there.
Yes.
And so
then you can't find it again.
Exactly.
That's the other problem, because I'm like, oh, I love that recipe. Oh, God.
Where is it?
Where did it go? So I can't even remember what it was.
Exactly. We're really trying to think of a hub for content. So it's like we're making videos that live on our platform of this blog. And so that's exciting because we do want to do more things like this and talk about more things than just pretty prints, even though those are great. Yeah. And so I think always expanding that content as well. I was just watching something last night actually was talking about value. Offering value is kind of the most successful thing happening on all the platforms right now, value or entertainment.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting for someone like us because we offer a product mostly. So like, how do we both, keep the true reality that we are a retail company and offer value and entertainment that is for people's lives, not just we want to sell you pajamas or wallpaper. So always evolving in that way too.
Always evolving. I mean, I really think that that's the key to it all, isn't it? It's just trying to stay ahead of it, or at least be authentic in what you're doing as you make this evolution. Well, Katie, I can't thank you enough for coming to Newsstand Studios today. What are your Instagram, social media handles? Where can we find you entertaining and also inspiring us?
Katie, Katie _Kime, and then katiekime.com. And that should get you everything.
That should get you everything into that big flagship store opens in Austin. Well, Katie, thank you for coming in. I would ask everyone who's listening to this podcast to think about curiosity. How are you being curious? What are you exploring? What are you looking for that's new and different? If you're feeling kind of stuck in a rut, that might be a good way to get out of it. So DM Katie, you can DM me. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Lydia Fenet. This is Newsstand Studios in Rockefeller Plaza. A huge shout out to Tishman Spire and to my amazing producer, Joe, for making this all work. I hope you guys will tune in again next Tuesday. In the meantime, have a great day.